Most sorry to have busted up your party.
Yeah, it's quite all right. We understand how these things happen.
And actually, it was rather exciting. Don't you think?
Oh, yes, it was very exciting.
Well, at least you have your murder.
Yes, now you can move on to more important cases and things.
After I've wrapped up all the details on this one.
Well, you've got your killer. What more do you want?
A few answers to a few nagging questions. Ready, Holly?
Yes, of course. Good night, all, and thank you.
Don't mention it. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Oh, well,
Move
once
it.
again, I'm most sorry.
I am still worried sick about those papers.
Well, I'm sure you're glad that's over.
Oh, yeah.
Has anybody seen Jimmy Lee? Yes, he's up in your room changing. I gave him some of my dry clothes.
Well, how nice.
One big happy family.
I'm sorry the evening was such a dismal failure.
Oh, nonsense. I was just telling Grant that it's all been quite thrilling. In fact, so much so that I'm utterly exhausted.
Well,
That makes two of us.
in that case, you run on to bed. We'll take care of anything that needs to be done down here.
All right. Good
Have
night.
a good night.
And thanks for the lovely party.
We're glad you enjoyed it.
Good night.
Well, as you lay your weary heads down on your little pillows this evening and slowly drift off into dreamland, I want you to think of one thing. Those papers. Because until we find them, we're up that world-famous creek.
Without the paddle.
Okay, what's the latest?
On what?
Come on, get in the ball game, Alan. Tolliver, of course. Is the old buzzard dead yet?
We don't know.
Well, what's wrong with you two? Do I have to do everything?
What do you want us to do? Go down to the hospital and hang around his bed and wait?
Get on the phone. Find out what's going on.
I don't think it's a very good idea if we seem a bit too eager.
Oh, eager schmeager. If the old guy dies, the secret dies with him. That's what makes me eager.
And if he dies, we aren't going to ever know where the papers are.
That's the least of my worries. The worst thing that could happen for us is to have him live. If he does, he may have to go on trial, and then everything comes out. Everything.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well,
Bad news.
he's alive.
Yes, and the latest news is they're going to operate.
Well, if the man lives, we're dead.
Not necessarily. You know, there's a chance that we could talk him into telling us where the papers are.
Yeah, fat chance of that.
No, really. Listen, I was thinking maybe I could go down there after the surgery, and maybe in his weakened condition.
Have you lost your mind? The police are probably just waiting for us to make some dumb move.
Absolutely, Alan, really. If he wouldn't tell Lila where the papers are, he's certainly not going to tell one of us.
Yeah, Monica's right.
Where are those papers?
Maybe he stashed them in a safety deposit box.
Well, wherever he has them stashed away, I just hope they stay in their little cubbyhole and rot. That way, dear Cousin Herbert isn't going to know what happened, ever.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Paper, we're on the front page, all over it.
Yes.
Don't remind me.
That's a very good article, actually. Very well documented. It even mentions your son. The other one. Dragging the murderer into the house.
Very courageous young man he is. Regular chip off the old block.
Oh, what an incredible arrival you've given me. Are things always this exciting around here?
Oh, no, actually, this is sort of just an average week, really. Listen, why don't I get you some fresh coffee? This is cold, I'm sure.
Thank you. I'll just pick it up in the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Would you be a dear and ask Stella to bring me some tea? The woman never seems to be around when I want her.
Of course. By the way, will he be living here now?
Who?
Well, Jimmy Lee. Now that he's been announced as a quartermain, I just thought he might want to.
Yeah, over my dead body.
Well, whatever it means really is that, Jimmy Lee sort of really likes the ambience of the waterfront. You know, that really kind of suits his lifestyle.
Yes. Yes, well, he did seem a trifle curious. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Curious, yeah. And he is a quartermain.
What are you muttering about now?
You know, if someone has those papers, it has to be the only other someone outside of the police who knows the truth. And that someone is our dear little Jimmy Lee Eric Holt Quartermain.
makes you think that Jimmy Lee has the papers?
Well, he had to be working with Tolliver. Just think of all the coincidences.
Such as?
Well, Jimmy Lee was at Susan's house the night she told us about the blackmail scheme.
And he was in jail the night that she was murdered.
Which was also the same night that someone was impersonating Tolliver in the jail.
Yeah, Jimmy Lee was probably working with Tolliver, helping him pull off the impersonation.
He was working with Tolliver. He was working with Tolliver at the construction site.
And don't
So obvious.
Well, don't forget about what dear Celia just reminded us of.
Oh, yeah. He was the one. Jimmy Lee was the one who dragged Oliver in here last night.
Yeah, and no papers were found on him, so he had to give them to Jimmy Lee.
Wait a minute. Maybe he didn't give them to him. Maybe he just told them where they were.
Alan, think. Be logical, will you? Look, Tolliver went over to Susan's to kill Heather. He believed that Heather saw him kill Susan. Now, after that deed was done, he would be on the first bus or plane out of Port Charles.
Of course, so he had to have the papers on him.
The police say that he didn't. They also said they are nowhere on the grounds.
Somewhere between the boathouse and here, he slipped them to Jimmy Lee.
It all makes perfect sense.
Of course it does. Any fool could figure it out. Oh, good Lord.
What?
Right. Alan, listen, we've just figured this out. Scorpio certainly has. He's going to be hot on the trail.
There's nothing else we can do. We just have to talk to him. All we want him to do is keep quiet about the blackmail scheme. There's no reason why anybody should know about this now.
Especially Cousin Herbert.
Bite your tongue, Monica. I'm going to ride over to the hospital with you. I think that Scorpio's probably talking with that old geezer now. With any kind of a luck, we can arrive at the hospital in time to hear the Tolliver services tomorrow morning at 9.
Ah, Monica, how are you?
Hello. Well, a little worn around the edges, if you want to know the truth.
Well, it's no wonder.
Very proud of her. She was a tower of strength.
Oh, well, you're going to pay for it, because I've already got a lot of brochures for the Caribbean.
I'm going to buy you a whole island in the Caribbean. How's that?
Fine.
Hey, you deserve a rest. Both of you do. In fact, I want you to take the rest of the day off and relax.
Oh, no, Steve. We can't do that. We have too much to do.
I've already arranged to have someone fill in for you.
Well, that's very nice. Thank
I
you.
realize what both of you have been through. You need a break.
Listen, Steve, I want to apologize if I have caused this hospital any embarrassment whatsoever.
Oh, nonsense. Anyway, now that the murder's been solved, we can put all that behind us.
Now, let's hope so.
By the way, how is Tolliver doing?
Holding his own, but that's all, I'm afraid. Rick and...
Where is Edward?
Maybe he's looking in on Mr. Tolliver.
Nobody asked you any.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just that I know how concerned you must be about him. And, well, I think that's wonderful, considering everything, you know, those things.
What? Everything.
Don't humor her, Monica, please.
Well, the police say that they don't have a motive for the murder. And I thought that maybe he came to your house to tell you. I mean, there are usually two reasons for a murder, love or money. And I figure, considering Tolliver's age, it probably wasn't love. I don't think that Susan was having an affair with him, so it was probably money. What do you think?
Oh, hi, you two. How are you?
Fine.
Well, I'm not sure how you're still standing after last night. That was really terrible.
Yes, it was.
Well, there's one good thing that came out of it anyway. Your names are cleared, once and for all, and I'm really glad for both of you.
Thank you.
Has anybody heard anything about the operation?
Yeah, Dr. Hardy said so far, so good.
Well, he certainly couldn't have anybody better working on him than Ed and Rick.
Keeping our fingers crossed.
Oh, Amy, I need the McGinnis chart.
Sure.
Where's the two of you? I've been looking for you all over the hospital.
Did you talk to him?
Yes. You know, why the police commissioner isn't elected so we could buy the one we want is beyond me.
Edward, just tell us what he said.
Well, he spoke to Tolliver, but the old boy wouldn't tell him where he'd hidden the papers.
And you believed him?
Well, what choice did I have?
What are they going to tell the press?
Well, just that there was an extortion plot against us, but none of the details. But you know the press. They can smell a cover-up story a mile away. They'll keep digging till they hit pay dirt. How is that old blackmailer, anyway?
He's holding his own so far.
Yes, tenacious old rooster. You know, if he lives, he's going to cackle the story to everybody.
We've got to get hold of those papers. That way there won't be any proof of anything. We've got to.
Well, that's why we're going home right now. I told Jimmy Lee to meet us there. One way or the other, we're going to get that young man to admit that he does have those damn papers.